Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am so glad you're here. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that May is Fibromyalgia Awareness Month. This topic is especially near and dear to my heart because my mom lives with fibromyalgia. So I knew in my mindset, I wanted to speak to people that have experienced this and discuss the shifts they have gone through to live with and also now live without fibromyalgia. Earlier this month, I released an episode on May 12th, episode 132, with Tammy Stackelhouse, highlighting this condition. And today's conversation with Eileen is another powerful part of that story. Her journey of healing and mindset is so inspiring, and this will really help you, whether you are someone who lives with fibromyalgia yourself, or you know someone who does, or maybe you know someone who struggles with chronic pain. And this episode will help you better support them and support their mindset. Now let's get into the show.
Welcome to the Manders Mindset podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome back to Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. As always, I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am so excited to be here with Eileen today. We were so determined to speak to you guys today. We ran into quite a few issues over here on StreamYard. I couldn't see her, but you know what? We were not going to give that up. She got a separate computer out, and here we are. I am so excited to speak to you. We were determined.
Well, I feel like there's a will, there's a way, and technology is not going to stop me from figuring out whatever I need to do.
I love that mindset because I've never really believed that, you can't do this. There's a way. There's a way. I can find a way. I'll invent a way.
Well, if you think about talking about invent, all the inventions that have come about since the dawn of man and woman, the possibility and potential is unlimited. Our minds are not in a little box. We're meant to be creative, innovative, forward thinkers. We're meant to express. When someone has the opportunity to put one foot forward in front of the other and go after their dreams, their passions, their healing, whatever is driving them to show up in the world in the best possible way, nothing can stop you.
That is so true. I'd love to delve down your background a little bit. I know you're the CEO of Ordinary to Extraordinary Life and the creator of the Core Thinking Blueprint Method. I'd love to delve down those a little more if you could tell us about them.
Oh, yes. So Ordinary to Extraordinary Life, OTEL, OTEL is the acronym for that. OTEL Universe came out of the shutdown that we had back in 2020. And it's all about recognizing that we're not just ordinary people living ordinary lives, that the world, the universe, life has a lot to offer us. And to recognize within ourselves, what is it that enables me and allows me to be in the world, not of it, but be in it in the best possible way for myself, show up as my authentic self, be authentically me, and express joy, happiness, all the good things. And I think a lot of people in today's environment have a difficult time facing head on the miracles, the magic, the beauty that's in the world.
Now, I'm curious who you would say, Elaine, is at the core.
I am a hippie gypsy, absolutely. Free spirit. I am somebody who listens, who inspires, who wants people to step into the world in a grand way. And so I hold space. I'm a person who will be your biggest cheerleader, your biggest supporter in achieving the greatness that you are born to be, and see the world in perspectives that honor and cherish the authentic self. I'm all about authenticity.
I love that. Can you take us down memory lane a little bit? Tell us about your upbringing, childhood, family dynamic, however deep you want to take that.
Well, when I'm asked that question, my 5 or 6-year-old comes to mind because she was a wide-eyed, inquisitive, reserved child. I liked to be alone in my space, to daydream and to play with my Barbies and Ken and make it real for myself. I was actually born with a 60% hearing loss. And so that activated my 6 senses, which are heightened. So I experienced the world a lot different than normal hearing people. I'm very intuitive. And as a child, I can see myself, again, listening, watching, because I have to read lips to hear effectively. I connected with people in a way that was kind of subtle, like a subtle touch, a subtle question. I wasn't very outspoken. I was more of an observer and quiet, but inquisitive. I'm sure I asked a lot of questions as a child. As I got older, that developed into my desire to help people and to be there for others in a way that I can support them. And that led to my I had an awakening when I turned 40. You and I talked about my fibromyalgia, my journey with the fibromyalgia, and I self-healed. So I self-healed from the fibromyalgia and I self-healed. I had the awakening. And that catapulted me into my authentic self. The part of me that up until age 40, I was all the labels, a daughter, a wife, a mother, a teacher, yet, and I'm sure there's more labels there. But Eileen, core Eileen, authentic Eileen was missing. And that awakening was my stepping stone into who I've become, who I was becoming and who I had become and still am becoming. I have a lifelong journey. So it's like a whole world opened up for me that I was not in touch with, but was and is inherently who I am, that I resonate very strongly with. And that is a more spiritual and kind of philosophical life. So I'm a writer and a poet and an author. And so I teach through my writings. And it's just, I do morning musings that kind of brings to people insights, but it's through poetic verse or through insightful musings and verbiage that causes someone to go inward and think about themselves and what is their relationship to themselves and the world. So as part of my personal growth, I found myself at Atlantic University in Virginia Beach, Virginia, getting my master's in transpersonal psychology. Then I certified myself as a coach, and I call myself a breakthrough spark coach. And then all these tangents came about that support that authentic self that I discovered and nurtured from my breakdown of the fibromyalgia to the breakthrough of healing. So that's kind of the nutshell, the Reader's Digest.
Now, when did you get diagnosed with fibromyalgia?
Well, I had it when I was in my 30s, and it was just becoming known. They were just
in your 30s.
Yeah.
I feel like that's young.
I was young. Yeah. I was like 30, 33, 32.
I'm 28, and it's just like hit me in the mindset, like you saying 30s, and I'm like, oh shit, that's like
Yeah.
5 years away from me. Continue. Sorry.
Right. So I was developing all these symptoms, basically fatigue, insomnia, pain all over, foggy, pretty much every symptom that they attach to the word fibromyalgia these days, tenfold, hundredfold. And I felt like my life was slipping away because it was just debilitating. Just around my 40th birthday, I decided, and this is the mindset part, I can't do this anymore. I had kids to raise, a husband to attend to, a dog, the nuclear family. And I wasn't functioning. One of the turning points was my son, my oldest, look at me one day. And of course, when you're not feeling well, you try to put up a facade. So I thought nobody could tell that I wasn't feeling well. And my son said to me, Mom, why don't you smile anymore? And that broke my heart. Oh my gosh. So I went on a little longer, and finally I decided, okay, this isn't working for me. And I literally put my fist in the air and I looked up and I said, take me, heal me, because I'm not doing this anymore. And something shifted. So that was a pivotal point in understanding the difference between different paradigms. So I went from a sickness disease paradigm to a health and healing paradigm because things started showing up, people, information that became part of my protocol to rid myself of all the symptoms of fibromyalgia. And one of the keys, and we talked about this, one of the keys was I stopped identifying with it. And I completely removed the word from my vocabulary. And I replaced it with I'm happy, I'm healthy, whatever I wanted to become, as if I was already there. And my life changed. And I have friends that said, you looked 100 years old. And when you healed, you were this bright, shining light. It does happen when your body is fragmented and broken and sick and diseased. It does age you. And when you can get yourself to a point of that no longer is part of who you are, and instead you feed it, well, first you got to detox on all levels, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and then you rebuild with the opposite of whatever you just detoxed. And it's amazing how the body can be vibrant and joyful and happy and let go of the things that don't serve it. And I think part of the challenge that we humans have is that we want to hold on, we want to control, we want to identify with something. But the key for me was I needed to let go of all of that. And I needed to step into and nurture that authentic self that had gotten to the bottom of that list.
Now, did you do anything else besides just stop identifying?
Oh, absolutely. So I created a protocol and I hired my doctors or my practitioners, I like to say. I went down more of a holistic practice protocol for all the aspects of what I was experiencing. So I saw a chiropractor that did muscle testing, and he prescribed me the supplements that he used for his practice. I got regular body works or massages. I worked out with a purpose. My whole mindset was health and healing. I wanted to feel vibrant. I wanted to feel healthy. I wanted to feel like myself again because the fibromyalgia had robbed me of being who I was. And I just paid attention, and I paid attention to who was showing up and what they were offering. And did it resonate with me as far as, is it something I felt? So I trusted my intuition. I really built a friendship with that part of me that's got a little voice in the head that says, yes, do that. Or no, that's not going to be good for you. And it works. And another key was a friend of mine was just getting his coaching certification and he needed someone to work with. And I hadn't seen him in like 4 years. And all of a sudden he shows up. Perfect timing, synchronicity to the T. And so part of our coaching sessions was life purpose statement. My background was advertising, marketing, PR. So I thought, that's easy. I'm a marketing expert or whatever. The interesting thing is I must have gone into a zone that took me to that deep inner core authentic self. Because when I looked at what I wrote after I did the writing, it did not say anything about marketing, advertising, PR. It said, I'm a guiding light to show people the way. And I looked at it and like, I didn't write that, but I did. So what I've learned through my own experience from the healing and the protocol that I set up and the paying attention and the intuitive skills that I've developed, we all are intuitive. We just have to tap into it. And the growth that I've had since then is that the universe, the world is waiting for us. We just have to step into it. We just have to pay attention.
That's so true. Now, I'm curious what you would say to people, or if someone said, because I feel like some people have their opinions or beliefs on stuff, and sometimes you might hear that's woo, or like people saying that you can't talk yourself into something, or that's spiritual bypassing. What would you say to that?
It's experiential. Life is all about experiences. Life is all about conversation. And I've learned that I have to believe in something in order for it to present itself. I can't wait for it to present itself to believe it, because we, just by the way we're designed as human, we will create things, opportunities, people in our lives to support whatever that belief is. So if I walk around my whole life saying, that's not going to work, that's not going to work, that's not going to work, well, guess what? You're going to have experiences to support what you're saying. And I challenge anybody that feels beaten down by life and tired and just, wants to give up on trying to heal and get better, don't ever give up. The mindset shift is key and it's huge. And baby steps. It took about 3 or 4 weeks for my changing from I have fibromyalgia, I'm miserable, I'm unhappy, whatever the I was on that sickness and disease paradigm, to where I had to use all my strength and all of my wits to not attach to it and to say every day, I'm happy, I'm joyful, and do things to support that and find the reason to believe that's true. And the universe will, I say, co-conspire with you. And if you don't believe that, then, try to find a way for you to connect with your life that you can believe, whatever that is. What I'm sharing today is just what works for me because of who I am. And not, like I said, I'm different because I have a hearing loss. So I'm going to feel, see, hear at a much deeper level than the average person. That doesn't mean other people with normal hearing can't. But just because I have to tune in a very powerful way in order for that loss that I have to overcome it. So, I just want to say that never say never and believe in something. Don't not believe, but believe in something, whatever that something can be for you. And there's story after story out there of people who had, rags to riches or, on death's door with stage 4 cancer and they've healed. I had fibromyalgia. I don't have it anymore. So, it can happen. And if one person can overcome whatever their challenges in life, I believe anybody can.
I agree with everything you just said there, and this is slightly a different aspect in terms of healing and health. It was like more business related, but I had heard on a podcast, you've got to have almost that false delusion before, and you just believe a little bit, like even if you didn't fully feel happy, you have maybe that tiny little bit, maybe that false delusion, like that false delusion that this business is going to take off. even if nobody else sees the vision. Like, I heard that on a podcast somewhere. I have no idea who said it. And maybe that resonates with you, maybe it doesn't. But everything you were just saying, I was like, wow. Like, I've had people say to me about spiritual bypassing. That's honestly why I asked you. I agree, and I believe you can do it. But I know people think that, and people are like, can't talk yourself out of that. You can't. But you have to believe in something. Don't you want to believe in something?
Right. And I say you can talk yourself out of it, but you got to do it in a way that works for you. And something that is also part of the process, which is part of the core thinking blueprint, is what I call the 3 C's: confidence, courage, clarity. And one of the things as a coach that I've learned over the years, most adults, now you are an adult, but you're a young adult, so you can verify for me if you feel this is true as a young adult. What I have found for older adults is they have not fully developed their autonomy stage. So when we're growing up, that 8, 9, 10, 11, before you become a tween, are very key points in our life where we develop that sense of self and the ability to love ourselves for who we are. And unfortunately, most people are told who they need to be. You need to be this, you need to be that, you need to behave like this, and the list goes on. And what that does, it diminishes that authentic self. So what happens is, on a subconscious in an underlying current, going into adulthood, humans are looking for a way to stand in that authenticity. But the confidence has been eroded. There's no courage to do what needs to be done to be authentic. And there's no clarity in what are the steps that we take to go in fully, to show up fully, authentically ourselves. Part of that is learning to have strong boundaries and what I call strength with grace. Males and females can have that. We don't need to be bullies. We don't need to be aggressive. We can teach people how to treat us. We can teach people what works for us and what we accept or don't accept in our lives. But we've been so beaten down, we're afraid. There's a lot of fear to say no. I like to say, speak to the hand, right? Don't come any closer than this. Because I don't want that in my field. You know, you can feel people around you. So that joins your field, and then you're going to take on energy, what I call energy vampires, people who attack you. You can't do that. You're not going to succeed. You're stupid. You're this, you're that. And that authentic self is like, whoo, it shrinks. And I say, no, break through, break out, get rid of all of that. But you've got to have that inner confidence, courage, clarity. It's okay to be me. It's okay to be authentically myself. And I can be strong in expressing my artistic side, my mathematical side, my innovative side, my music side, whatever it is. I think more people are doing that because I see a lot more people feeling free to express their music talents, their voice. And part of what the OTEL Universe is helping people have a voice in the creative arts. And I strongly believe that we need the creative arts in the world to have that balance. And if you think about it, the innovation of science, space, music, all the key things in life, they all have some element of creativity. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Well, do you feel like you've developed your autonomy? Or do you feel like growing up, not just in the family environment, and it may not have been in the family environment, but just everything, social media, the news, school, teachers, friends, whatever. Do you feel like you are walking in your authentic self right now, or you have some development still yet to do?
I would say I'm walking in my authentic self. Honestly, I think I thought this was going to be your question, so I'm going to kind of answer this, even though you didn't ask me this. But I thought you were going to ask me something along the lines of confidence and fear with like, as a younger person. I don't feel like I face a lot of fear. And I feel like so many people, even not old, but even 15 years older than me, have so much fear around doing something. And I'm like, worst case scenario, I went out of the country a year ago and quit my job that I hated to do it. And I was single, I was young, I didn't have any kids. And everybody's like, oh my God, I could never do that. I'm like, I hate my job. I drive an hour and 10 minutes to work one way. I'm not making that much money. What am I doing? I want a trip to go to Bali. Really? I'll get another job. Let's consider things. I've got no fear. I've got the confidence. You know what? If I die going to Bali, that'd be a great way to go.
Oh, gosh, I love it. Yeah, no, you're a perfect example of not losing yourself in that autonomy stage and saying to the world, I'm going to face you head on, right? And fear does stop a lot of people in their tracks. And it's debilitating. But the good news is, as you know, you can just say no to fear and figure out what is the opposite of fear to you. So for you, you probably look at things in a way that it doesn't bother you when something shows up that could possibly stop you in your tracks. And you just look at it like, yeah, right, go away, right? You just don't give it any attention.
I'll show you how I can do it. I'll show you how I can do it.
And that's how, success, confidence breeds success is one of the quotes that I like to say. And we have to have that ability. Awesome thing about it, and I bet you can confirm this, people respect you more when you have strong confidence, courage, and clarity.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Even if they don't agree with me or they don't vibe with me, they're like, hey, you know what? I would never, and I've had people say that to me, oh, I would never do that, but good for you. I respect that you did that last minute and just went to Bali. Good for you. I've gotten so many of those comments.
Right. And it feels good to be respected because, especially females, we want to feel heard, valued, understood. And we get invalidated all the time, all across the board in all areas of life, especially in the medical system. I mean, I read every day of women being pushed aside. It's in your head, whatever. And it's not right. It's women of both sexes, male and female. Women know their bodies. And to be told, because I was told when I was suffering from the fibromyalgia, I was told, it's in your head, suck it up. And it wasn't in my head. My body was on fire internally, but you don't see it. And there's a lot of conditions out there where you don't see the debilitating symptoms. And it's the same with our mindset and how we experience the world in business and in relationships. So a lot of my core thinking blueprint method is understanding that dynamic of who we are in the world, how a relationship impacts and reflects through our communication, through that confidence, courage, clarity. And there's 8 levels of core thinking. So there's the victim mindset all the way up to the forward thinking success. And you're right there towards the top. So what I like to say is I take people from kindergarten to PhD. And then once you're successful through that process, guess what? You're going to go to the next tier. And those tiers are infinite. It never stops because guess what? The universe is always testing us to see how much we have grown, how much have we learned, what other lessons do we need to repeat until we feel like our head's been hit against the wall 1,000 times. And the cool thing is, as those layers develop, you become more aware of the universe testing and the lessons coming up, the same one coming up the time. You become more aware of, okay, I'm the one that really needs to look at what needs to be transformed or shifted or changed. And many times it's perspective, it's our thinking pattern, it's patterns that keep us stuck or that sabotage us. Fortunately, because of who I am and who I've become and the journey I've had with all the lessons I've learned and the information that I've gained, I can see what a person needs without them even telling me.
I love how you mentioned we know our bodies. I think that's the biggest thing. And whether it's fibromyalgia, whether it's something else, I think men and women, and I'm not like anti-medical professionals, but I truly believe no one knows your body better than you. I have this example. I was 16 years old. I was diagnosed with daily chronic migraines. I was seeing a neurologist. I was trying all these different medications for migraines to the point where this new one we tried, I fainted in an American Eagle. And I have no recollection of it. Thankfully, I was with my boyfriend at the time. Thankfully, I wasn't alone. And I'll never forget, the doctor said to me, you can't risk stopping this medication. And sassy me said, you know what? I will gladly faint by not taking it. I'll take my chances. If that's what's going to happen, I don't feel better. I'm already fainting. So you know what? I'll take my chances. I switched my diet around. I started meditating, and I don't have migraines anymore.
Awesome.
So 7 years ago.
Good for you. So that's very similar to what I did for the fibromyalgia. It's like, actually, I didn't mention that. So I was down to the last 2 pills. So I had a basket full of all these, depression pills, insomnia pills, this, that, and the other. And I don't like taking pills. But I was at the time just at my wit's end. So I was down to the last 2. And I'd already had an experience where I knew I switched to health and healing paradigm. But I was still, in the medical system, so I was weaning myself. And I literally took a pill and my hand stopped right here. It stopped midway. I'm like, okay, that's weird. I put it down. I said, let me try that again. So I picked it up and I went to take it. And literally, I could not get my hand to go to my mouth. So I said, okay, my body doesn't want it anymore. And I did it with the second one, same thing. And I put them in a drawer and I never touched them again. So when there's a will, there's a way, and the body knows what it needs. The body knows what it wants. And when we tune in and we have that confidence to say, okay, I'm paying attention. And, the muscle testing is another way to work with somebody else. It's called body talk as well, where the body tells us what it wants and what it needs. And I'm just such a huge advocate for how we think, because it's so if you think about it, when you meditate, because I meditate also, when we meditate, we go into another way of being in the moment. And it's like nothing else matters. You're just in this space of being grounded in the moment. And if you sit and you just close your eyes, close your mind, and you sit still, nothing happens until you have a thought. So I always say thought precedes action. And action is based on what you think. Think about that. So if you think positive, you're going to take a positive step in some direction to do something that's going to support that positive thought. If you think, I can't do this, just saying that, the body drops. And if you say, yeah, I can do that, your body's going to be more uplifted. Forget the author, but Map of Consciousness. Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
Oh, look it up. Map of Consciousness. I use it all the time. There's a graph that was made on words, and it's based on the consciousness of our thinking. They're gauged on how much they make you feel good and how much they make you feel bad. Anger, frustration, all those heavy negative words are at the bottom of the graph. And then all the love, joy, peace, happiness. And there's like 100 words. So if you Google it, it's all over the place. Not all over the place. There's a lot of different variations of it. I'm drawing a total blank on who created it, but it's a great tool to have a valuable understanding of how important thinking is to how our life unfolds.
It's so true. It is so true. Oh, I loved this, Eileen. Thank you so much. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it. Have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
Jay Shetty. I don't think I have.
So he's an author, a monk, former monk, motivational speaker. He's got a podcast called On Purpose, and he ends it with 2 segments. And I stole these questions, so I reference him. First segment is the many sides to us. And there's 5 questions, and they need to be answered in 1 word each. What is 1 word someone who was meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
An enigma. Enigma.
What is 1 word someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you?
Incredible.
What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Authentic.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
Weird.
What is 1 word you're trying to embody right now?
Peace.
Love that. Second segment is the final 5, and there's 5 questions, and these can be answered in up to a sentence. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
Never give up.
Why is that the best?
Because I think we stop pursuing our dreams, our passions, living authentically, doing the things we want to do, doing the things we enjoy too soon.
What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
The worst advice. You got to think like me. You
What is
need to think like me. You need. I don't like the word need. So I never use the word need.
I love that you continued and said that. I love that you continued and said that. I just have to say, I even recorded a solo episode where I talked about the differences between needs and wants, and not much is needed. So I love that you said you hate the word need, but so do I. I just had to interrupt. What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
So my husband and I moved into our camper for a couple of years. So I used to value having like a big house and all this stuff, but I really don't need it. Living a simple life is all that is. And I'm going to use the word need for here because it's all that's needed to be in the world and still achieve great things.
I love that. If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
All the words of wisdom that I pass along of what I've learned and what's come through me for others, that it lives on and people read my articles and my books and the things that I share, my poems. And no matter how far down, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, it still has an impact on someone and saves lives and inspires and motivates.
If you could create 1 law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I want to know why.
This is like a big law.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah, you gotta love. You gotta love self, you gotta love others. And I've always pictured, instead of war with guns, people carry flowers. Throw flowers at each other. I know it's ridiculous, but it's like war to me is ridiculous. And, just love. If we had more love, just respect for each other and love and acceptance, that we'd have a better world.
I completely agree. I think showing up with love, no matter where you are, it'll reflect how it is.
A smile can make a huge difference in someone's day. A little note. Yeah. I just read before we came on this, a librarian would slip notes in books. And people loved it. She did it for like 12 years. And nobody knew who did it until she retired and she confessed. But she would say, like, somebody's thinking of you, or somebody, knows.
That's so cute.
Yeah, I love the idea. It's like sometimes we just need that little message that somehow the universe provides, but we don't know who it came from. You matter. Those 2 words can make a difference in someone's life.
It's so true. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. I really appreciate it.
You're
And
welcome.
And I do just like to give it back to the guest. Any final words of wisdom you want to share with the listeners before we close out?
Shine your light and just be the best version of yourself every day, a better version every day, and don't let anybody take that away from you. Be unstoppable.
I completely agree. Be unstoppable. Thank you, Eileen.
You're welcome. And thank you for what we can do this again anytime.
And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Manders Mindset. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.